Hi there, I'm Luke, welcome back to PhotoBite. Today we've got our hands on the Canon EOS R. Let's get into it. So the Canon EOS R is part of Canon's new lineup, but it will be sitting in the mirrorless lineup. This isn't going to replace anything, it's simply going to sit alongside the 6D Mark II, 5D4 and 1DX2. So if you're looking to replace your current Canon, this isn't something to replace it, but something to work alongside. The way that Canon are currently marketing this camera is as a second camera for a professional and a main camera for an enthusiast. So this isn't out to replace anything, this is merely to be a helpful partner in difficult situations. So if you're working in a lot of low light situations, this is really good in low light. We're very impressed with it. It can focus down to -6 EV. It has silent shooting, so if you're in a wedding or you need to be very, very quiet in whatever situation that you are, this is another good alternative to have a look at, because you won't get the loud shutter that you would in the current DSLR lineups. Overall, it's a complete redesign from what we've seen in the 5D series before. You still got the classic Canon grip, which is nice to hold. Definitely taller than the Sonys. I'm not finding my pinky kind of falling off. You can just grab it and it's really easy to hold in the one hand. Internally, we're looking at a 30 megapixel sensor, full frame might I add, so we're very impressed to see that. Pretty much the same as what we saw in the 5D4. What will boggle your mind is they do have 5,655 autofocus points inside this body, which means there's almost an entire coverage on the sensor, so no matter where you want to focus, I can guarantee you're going to get it. So we're very impressed by that. I still want to do a bit more testing to see how good it is, to see how it works, because when I was playing with it you were getting small squares. Now whether or not that surface area adds up to 5,065 different points, I'll let you know later on when we have a more in-depth review. On the ISO, we're looking at 100 to 40,000 ISO, which is really impressive. It's going to work really well in low light, especially with the -6 EV focusing standard. Partnering that up with a 50mm f1.2, it's safe to say you're going to get some very impressive low light shots. It's nice to see Canon pushing the word innovation and putting it into their new lineup. Now they've completely redesigned it, meaning that if you look on the top, you know, there's very few things that scream, oh, that's Canon. For starters, your on and off button is more of a dial switch between the two. You then look over on this side, you have an LCD EVF, so we're finally seeing a change like we did with the Nikon Z series, and before that the Fuji X-H1. So this is really, really nice to have. One of the nice features I like about it is that you can actually turn it into a light. So currently you can see it's quite dark at the moment. If I just hold this light button down, it'll then just change over, just like so. So it does seem to be a bit finicky, but once you get it right, it's about a 2-second hold and it will go over to white. But it does revert back. It would be nice if it would just stay over and then I choose when to put it back, but you know, that's something you could probably find in the settings to change that. We have only had this in our hands for a few hours, so we're still learning the kinks on it. If we have a look on the back, they've actually put in this new customizable dial, which is really handy if you want to change it from using on ISO, exposure compensation. You want to have something easy access and quick to change without going into the menu or the screen. This is really handy, although the placement does seem to be a bit of an issue for my thumb, because when I place it here, I can still touch it and I can still control some of the settings, which can be quite annoying when you're shooting in low light. I decided to put the ISO to auto and then it dialed it up to 12,800 when I didn't want it to. I did try the lock function, that does sit there, but it didn't seem to care and it will carry on changing the ISO. So maybe that's something you can deactivate in settings, and I hope you can, but from our initial playings with, it doesn't seem like you can do that. If we look back over to the EVF, you have this mode dial which you can control, so you still have your 2 dials, one at the top here and then one at the back. When you hit the mode button in the middle, you can now change over. So currently we're in video, so you can go through your video with manual, video with aperture priority or shutter priority. Those are your options. But if you want to get into photo, you just hit the info button and then you can change it over to whatever you want. So that'll be manual, that'll be aperture priority, or maybe you want to go program. You have those options and you still have some custom options, which is nice to see. When it comes to the lenses, they've currently got 4 lenses that are coming out. What you get in the package if you choose to go with the lens is you get the 24-105, which is f4 all the way through. When it comes to sharpness, we're very impressed by it. When it comes to focusing, Canon claim it can focus down to -6 EV, which is very impressive. That's basically having a candle in the room. So we do need to do a bit more testing, but from our initial results, it handles okay. I wouldn't say it nails it every time. It does require a bit of work to get it to focus on the subject, but you're not having to sit there and decide to go manual focus. You can do it in autofocus. With the other lenses, you have a 50mm f1.2 that is coming out, a 35mm macro, and they're also announcing later for December to come out a 28-70 f2. Now this is something that's really impressive because they're going with a much larger flange distance, with a much larger diameter. It means that they can go with higher aperture lenses without losing lens distortion and without getting horrible vignetting around the edges. What's really interesting about Canon's lineup on their lenses is you normally have your zoom, which is here, you then have your focus, which is here, but now they've included an extra dial, which you can probably hear clicks, and that again is a customizable option that you have available to you. Now you do have the customizable section that we've already spoken about on the back of the body, but then on the front you can have it for something completely different. For example, you can have this as the ISO, and then you can have this as the aperture. Or maybe you don't want to change your aperture, you can then change it to your shutter speed, or you can change it to your ISO and flip the two around. So it's completely customizable to how you want to use the camera, which is great for people who have a specific way of shooting. They can use this camera to adapt to them rather than them having to adapt to the camera. Other features that are really nice, and we're finally glad that we've got companies listening to us. You're still running on the EPL-E6 batteries from Canon, so you're not having to buy a new set of like 1,000 different batteries. You can just carry on with the ones that you've already got if you're already in the Canon world. Now this is going to upset a few people, but you are only looking at a single card slot. Now I know this is quite frustrating for quite a lot of users, especially wedding photographers who like to have that trust in that and that backup in a second card. Now this is something for Canon to rectify in their next model if they choose to, but we also need to understand that we are getting to a point where SD cards are becoming a lot more reliable than they were 7 years ago. So you can actually rely on using one card and they're less likely to crash. Now that's not to say that it's been completely eradicated. There are still situations where it happens. It's happened to the best of us, and we just hope that whatever Canon's running with the security system in the camera, it won't ruin your precious memory cards. So for those of you who are actually within the Canon world, I'm happy to announce you do not have to sell all your Canon lenses and switch over to their new lens lineup. In the box, if you were to buy the body, you will get an adapter that allows you to connect your old EF lenses onto Canon's new mount, which is a bit wider. What they're also going to do is they're bringing out 2 other adapters. One of them will have this dial here that clicks, but they'll have it on the base of the camera between the body and the lens. So rather than reaching over and controlling it from here, you can keep your hand back and control it from the back. This is going to be really helpful for filmmakers, as they won't have to readapt their muscle memory to move forward to change the aperture. They can keep it at the back and control it there. One of the other interesting things that we were very intrigued by is they're now going to have a drop filter adapter where you can actually put in a variable ND or a circular polarizer, and you can actually have it between the body and the lens. Now, as far as we're aware, this isn't possible and you can't get it directly through a brand. You can get a few through third parties, but it's nice to see Canon thinking about filmmakers and maybe even some photographers out there that would like to have a drop-in ND filter so that they can control it without screwing it on the front and then taking it off. Now, not only have they done that, they've also put a dial on the outside, so you don't have to take out the variable ND or circular polarizer, turn it, and then put it back in. You can control it all from the external side of the adapter, which is incredible to see. If you want to see some pictures, make sure to check out our website and have a look at the gallery. We'll also be putting up some test shots that we got out of this, as well as some test video. We will be getting our hands on this very soon so we can do a more thorough, in-depth test and review. So let us know what you want to know and leave them down in the comments below. But as always, my name's Luke, this is Photobuy, and we'll see you next time.